just gets to a point that you're burnt out, right? You have so many things in your hand and you have been juggling master for so long, because I'm like, bro, I don't want to juggle this anymore. Like, hey, somebody else take it. And at that point, that's when I knew it was time to transition. How's it going, guys? Welcome to another episode of Secrets to Silent Success. Today, we have again another conversation with the producer, Mr. Jonathan Stanley. How you doing this evening, brother?
Good, how you doing?
Tired, boss, I ain't gonna lie to you. Like, we gotta start recording before 6:20. But anyway, what you got on the plate today?
Transition?
It's on you, big fella.
Yeah. So today I didn't know it was doing like that.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah. So recently I saw that you posted, and we've been posting clips, and in some of your previous interviews you stated that losing your grandmother made you realize how short life really is, but it also made you realize where you wanted to place your time and energy.
Yeah, for sure.
So I just kind of want to dive into that conversation and talk a little bit about that transitional phase that you're going through in your life, and how correlating losing a loved one can kind of make you reconsider exactly where you're going in your future.
Yeah, I think what you're referring to is in one of the videos I talked about how I had a lot on my plate already as a business owner, right? This is kind of the way it is, the day in the life, you have a lot on your plate. And then having a family illness, even more got put on my plate from a familial perspective, right? So now I'm calling home healthcare nurses and trying to make sure that the nurses are getting paid. You're doing all these other things for my grandmother along with the business. And it made me be like, dang, like, do I want to sit here for 4 hours and edit this video? Do I want to sit here and send invoices? Do I want to source these clients? Like, what do I really want to do? Because now so much of my time has been put to my personal life with helping my family take care of my grandmother. It made me just put things into perspective.
No, got it. And when you say as a business you have so much on your plate, and then you say you were the one in the family, making the calls, making those decisions. Why do you think those decisions were kind of placed on you?
Well, firstly, I would say a lot of times I'll step up and take on the responsibility. For me, I feel like if a plane is crashing and I'm the most competent person to fly the plane, even though it's crashing, I'm like, give me the joystick, I will fly the plane, right? That's just kind of my makeup, my psyche. But I also feel that, at least from my grandmother's perspective and from the family perspective, because I have had so much experience in business, right? Negotiating rates. Who's going to negotiate the rates with the nurse who's going to be staying with my grandmother at night? Well, me, right? I'm used to negotiating rates with people, right? So I was able to talk to her, and I found her online, and I was able to source the leads. I hire people for a living, right? So I can do the same thing to help my family. So I think that's a little bit of why some of those more business-like responsibilities within my personal life got delegated to me. But I think I'm just a natural leader. Like, I enjoy doing that. This may be bad, maybe I'm a control freak. I like being in control. I feel more, don't roll your eyes, it's the truth, right? It's the truth. Like, you feel, at least I feel more in control when I'm in control, kind of like a little cycle. But if I feel like I can do it the best, then I'm going to step up to the plate and take on those responsibilities, even when sometimes it gets a little heavy. Hey, it makes you stronger.
Yeah, I'm about to dive in to you losing your grandmother. Of course, with friends, we talk about a lot of things, but I know personally you kind of put a poker face on. Yeah. How do you balance, running the business and dealing with your grandmother on hospice and kind of keeping the balance? How did you figure out what was more important and the times you had to go back to Houston and spend those times with her? Just internally, how did you kind of manage that? And mentally, how did you kind of make sure you put your business face on at times you had to?
Well, I think one thing when it comes, I'll address the latter first. When it comes to having a poker face on or being able to keep your wits about you, like losing a loved one is tough, right? And it's the first immediate family member I've ever lost, right? So it's tough, and I think most people can relate to losing a family member. It's tough. However, I also am a firm believer in logic, right? So you have a 87-year-old grandmother who has dementia, who health has been ailing and failing. You understand that there is a point in time where she's going to transition and leave us, right? So, and I told my family, I was like, hey, I was grieving 3 months ago, right? Grieving the losing of my grandmother. Therefore, when I lost her, it was understood. Like, we knew that was going to happen. So it wasn't like a being hit by a semi truck type of thing, right? So I definitely think that helped me put things in perspective, that you could grieve over time as opposed to, I don't want to say putting it in denial, but putting on blinders and then it hitting you at the end, right? I was able to grieve over time. It was still tough. I'm not going to sit there and say it wasn't tough, but it was still tough. In terms of prioritizing the business versus taking care of personal responsibility, I think that's what we're talking about in the transition of the episode, right? Or the transitional episode, is that it made me realize, dang, I have a lot of crap that I'm doing over here, but that's not as important as the stuff that I need to be doing as a grandson, as a son, as a brother, whatever, right? I need to, handle business from a family perspective. And then that made me delegate more in my business, right? I would love to say that I was able to hire more contract editors, delegate more things to the team because I wanted to and because that's the right thing to do. As a business owner, you should be delegating. That wasn't necessarily the case, right? My hands were full, and then all of this family stuff got pulled on top, and I started dropping things, right? And when you start dropping things, then you start delegating. So I was almost delegating by force, but hey, I think, better late than never, that now we have more contract editors. We just finished 8 video projects, and I didn't edit any of them. I was just doing quality control, and I think it's helping for the business not to have the bottleneck, which the bottleneck was me. So it's a learning experience for sure.
Definitely. I know, so you lost your grandmother. That was like the wake-up call for you to realize, hey, this is not really what I want to do. I want to focus a little bit more on myself, on my career. Yeah. For some of us, it may be other situations. Maybe you see a lot what's going on inside of companies, or you realize working this job, this is not internally what I want to do. Yeah. So what was it inside of you? Of course, seeing where you want to put your energy, but what was it like, hey, I'm just going to make that call and just focus on exactly what I want to do right now. And
yeah, it just gets to a point that you're burnt out, right? You have so many things in your hand and you have been juggling master for so long. I think for me, the point of saying, hey, I need to have a change was when I decided I don't want to juggle this anymore. Right? There's one thing to have a lot to juggle and to juggle it all the time. I think that's what a lot of business owners do. That's what parents do. That's what teachers do. That's what we have to do as human beings when we have a heavy workload. We juggle it all. But I think the point to where you gotta, stop, have a halftime with yourself, reflect on what you're doing, is when you're like, I don't want to juggle that anymore. Right? Mm-hmm. And I think that's where I got to a point with the media business and just all of the day in, day out obligations that was on my plate. I was like, I don't want to juggle it anymore. And when you get to that point, that's a real dangerous point, because you start to care less and you start to be more apathetic about things, and you start to maybe have, worse customer service, and it just becomes a trickle down effect. And then those in your team or even you was like, bro, you seem pretty checked out. Like, you noticed it, right? Because I'm like, bro, I don't want to juggle this anymore. Mm-hmm. Like, hey, somebody else take it. And at that point, that's when I knew it was time to transition. Now, what that process looks like of actually transitioning to something different, I'm still figuring it out, right? But I think that was my wake-up call to be like, I don't want to juggle this anymore, so maybe I should do something different.
Definitely. I know for some of us, life can get very, very routine. You've been in the media industry over 8 years by now, correct? Yeah. Is it scary for you to, hey, this might not what I do 2 or 3 years down the line? Like, did that ever kind of trickle in your mind, but when you were kind of contemplating on, do I really want to switch up? And some of us may be afraid to switch careers or do something else because we've been so used to our life previously. Any advice for anybody that's kind of struggling with those thoughts that goes in their mind?
So it's hard for me to give advice because I'm in the process now. I can just talk about what I'm doing, right? And one of the ways that I like to look at life, I am an avid sports fan, right? The NFL being my favorite sport. And a lot of players in the NFL will say that NFL stands for not for long. I like to put that on my careers as well. This is crazy. I remember talking to my brother and some other people when I first started videos, and I'm like, I'm gonna do this for 10 years and then I'm out. I'm gonna go do something else. And so I'm 8 years in and I'm like, all right, I'm maybe not get to 10. It's time to start doing something else, because I think change is good. There was a book that I was reading one time that was like, you should move houses, you should move cities every 7 years because change is good, right? It allows you to not get so routine in your elements. It allows you to keep growing, to keep building calluses on yourself because you're going through different hardships, you're going through different challenges, and you're bettering yourself. So I'm a little different because I actually like change.
I'm someone that don't really like change. So.
Right? So I'll say two things. I think for me, it was all about like mindset of saying like, hey, I know what I'm doing right now in the video media production stuff. This is not for long. Like I didn't see myself as being a lifelong videographer where I'm filming weddings when I'm 45. That's never what I saw. I was like, hey, I'm gonna do this for 10 years and I'm gonna dip and do something else. That was number one. Number two, change is good. So one of the best feelings that I've had in my life outside of, being married and starting a business, things like that. One of the best feelings that I've ever had in my life. Can you guess what the feeling is? Because you probably had a similar feeling.
Speaking to the young students?
We had the same exact experience on the exact same day. I don't know if you enjoyed yours as much as I enjoyed mine.
Hit it. I don't know.
Moving to college. Going to UNT.
Oh, okay.
Moving out of the house, going to I remember the exact Wale song I had playing on my car on the CD still. I'm showing my age a little bit. Had a burnt CD, a Wale song called "Don't Hold Your Applause for Me." I remember that song playing when I'm pulling on UNT campus. I'm like, bro, I'm here. I'm by myself. I'm doing this. The feeling that I had of this, everything was new. Everything was changed. Everything was different. And I always try to seek out that feeling. So whether it's transitioning to being a speaker or whether that's transitioning to, hey, I'm gonna do a feature-length documentary, I got that same feeling. So I love that feeling of change because it's a new challenge. It's something new, it's something different, it's something fresh. But that's just me. A lot of people don't like that feeling, but I actually like enjoy and seek that feeling of change.
Definitely. I know we talked, your grandmother always stated that she saw you as a preacher growing up.
Yeah.
Of course.
My stepdad said that too.
Stepdad too, okay.
Yeah.
But you're not speaking the Christian word, but you are giving motivational advice in your new career path.
Yeah.
And I can look, when I go see your speech, I see like you're really passionate about this.
Yeah.
So of course, you said in previous interviews, you got to find your superpowers and kind of invest in that. That's how you kind of find your passion, which is such a cliche answer, but
it is.
Kind of dive into that. Tell me literally why motivational speaking is something that you're trying to get into and just the feeling you get from following that career path.
Yeah, so I'll say a couple of things. When it comes to public speaking and when it came to video production, two things. So I'll give you a couple of things. The first thing is both video production and the public speaking felt natural, right? So if you're looking for that superpower, what feels natural? What comes to you naturally? And I know that sounds weird, like, what do you mean? Trust me, you will feel it, right? I was in bands for like 8 years throughout grade school and high school. It never felt natural, right? I always felt like I had to put in work to get good at it. I remember being a senior in high school. I was in video class for the first time. My media teacher was talking to my mom on the visit the teacher night at school or whatever. And I remember him saying to my mom, like, your son's gifted at that. I never heard that about playing an instrument, right? Because I was good, but I was good because I had to try really hard at it. With the video stuff, it just felt natural. I could just pick it up. I could just kind of film some stuff. It felt cool. I enjoyed putting the pieces together. It felt natural. So that's number one. I've always felt that way as a speaker as well. As I said, my stepdad, my grandmother, they were like, you're gonna be a preacher. That just meant like they felt that I could go in front of an audience and be able to talk to people, right? So that's the first thing. It felt natural. The second thing is find something that makes you feel childlike. Like when I go on stage and I'm talking to young adults, especially the teenagers and the college students, like I'm almost like not giggly, but I just feel good. Like I remember being the kid at presentation day with my floppy disk in 3rd grade, giving my first PowerPoint presentation. Anytime that I go up there and give a speech to 300 trio kids, I feel like that 3rd grade kid with his floppy disk with that PowerPoint presentation. I can still see that PowerPoint presentation in my head. So I'm always seeking out that feeling of feeling childlike again. Growing up, you can probably attest to this too. Adulthood was working a job, paying your bills, probably not liking your job, probably struggling to pay your bills, and just going through the daily routine. That's what adulthood felt like. But I've never felt that way. Like I've never felt like I got to adulthood. So when I'm out there seeking out my passion, I'm like, what can I do that feels childlike? So that's the second thing to find your superpower. Number one, what feels natural? Number two, what feels childlike? And number three, what can you do that's better than a lot of other people? I know from my experience as a videographer, I've been able to get really good, but I'm not even the best videographer on my team. Shout out to Rodney, right? So like, I know I'm not the best in the world at that. I may be pretty good at producing films now and bringing people together and doing more of the business aspect. I really like business. I think I'm kind of good at that. But in terms of being a videographer, I'm not that good at it, right? However, when it comes to public speaking is one of the top fears of human beings outside of death, right? Mm-hmm. So just by having the courage to get in front of 300 people, you're already better than a lot of people. And then I always felt that I had the ability to be a quick thinker, to be able to talk and, you know, bring sentences together, and always enjoy just being able to convey ideas and to see people get excited. So I just felt like, hey, I was good at this and better than the majority of the people, so I tried to lean into it more.
Definitely, okay. Sometimes, you know, people that are trying to make a transition, you know, you got to invest in yourself is the first thing I want from you.
You got to invest all
But sometimes some of us
money.
are working jobs, you know, we are doing things outside of our scope. We're giving so much energy to the company or our own business.
Yeah.
It's a little bit difficult to kind of spend more time and focus on you. Can you give us some tips on how you make your schedule like and you invest in yourself and focus on making that transitional phase actually go through?
So again, as I said, my grandmother took sick in November and passed away in February. In January, this was kind of my, hey, I'm burnt out moment. I need to do a change. I want to feel that feeling like I felt when I was on the college campus again. I want to feel childlike. I want to be passionate. So one of the things I did was just flip the order of my schedule. So normally the first thing I would do when I wake up, I would check emails for the business. I would delegate to my team members. I would answer emails. I would start working on videos for clients. That's what I would do when I first wake up. Now I just flip it, right? My work as a public speaker, my work as a content creator, me sourcing leads for speaking gigs, I just put all that stuff first, right? I give myself my best energy, which is from about 5 a.m. to 9 a.m., right? I try not to take any calls in that time. Like, we don't even work out as much anymore because I feel like that's the time I'm trying to give myself, my new business, all the energy that I possibly can. So what I did just to be able to prioritize investing in myself was to give myself the freshest hours of the day and the first hours of the day. That's simple. And it's made a huge impact on the content that we're able to put out. You notice we can post more. You're like, oh, I actually get edits on time now when you used to not to because I'm actually prioritizing it now. That's all it was. Just
still a little slow, but it's okay. It's okay.
It's better though. It's better, bro. It's better. Like, it's better. Like, we posting more or we not posting more. Like, it's better, bro. My nephew still don't follow me on Instagram. Shout out to nephew behind the camera, but it's cool though. He follow me on Instagram. He don't follow me on TikTok. So that's fine though. I'm the old uncle. I'm not cool, but anyway. He did subscribe to my YouTube.
Oh, you did?
Just now. And that's not something to congratulate. Just now. We've been at the YouTube for a whole year and a half. He just now subscribed. But anyway, go ahead.
You know, Nathan always comments on our TikTok videos.
Shout out to Nathan. Shout out to the nephew Nathan, bro. That's all good.
Oh, but no, that was kind of all just, you know, as people, as I'm going through, trying to figure out exactly the next career you're going through and how do you make that transition. But also, you know, steps on how to find that next career path or next journey of your life. So that's all I kind of have for this conversation.
Yeah, I would say for you who's also thinking about transitioning in your career from a 9-to-5 employer perspective, what do you think the biggest challenge is of making a career transition? And when I say transition, I'm not just talking about from one job to another. I'm talking about maybe a different industry or going into entrepreneurship full time. What do you find is your biggest challenge and what's maybe holding you from initiating that transition?
Good question. I know one of the things we've discussed, sometimes when you do want to make a transition to another field, you might have to take a pay cut.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, the world we live in, inflation is high. It's kind of difficult to make a pay cut for that next transition. It's a little easier if you stay in that field and try to work your way up, or you have to change your whole lifestyle to make that transition, or you have to spend money to take certifications or take classes to get in that certain field you want to get into. That could be one instance. Another instance, you know, you can give your company work so much time where you get home, you don't really have the time to invest stuff. You're burnt out, you know. You have to set time for yourself to make that transition, which can hold a lot of people back from making that transition as well.
Yeah. I'll speak on the taking less money during a transition. I know we all hear the phrase, sometimes you gotta take 2 steps back to take a step forward. Last year, us as a company was looking to transition. This is not even me personally, right? So we're trying to do less weddings, less one-off gigs, just less gigs that we didn't get enjoyment out of. We were trying to do more productions, work with Porsche, work with bigger brands. We're investing a lot more money to do projects up front and hoping to get paid on the back end. So last year, I literally made $30,000 less than the previous year. That's a huge amount of money to make less, but I think what helped me navigate through that transition of our company now doing different gigs is the fact that as my income increased, my living expenses never did. I kind of kept my living expenses the same. I always talk about I drive a 2011 Ford Explorer. I still stay in the same rented 3-bedroom house. I didn't go drive $50,000 on a down payment on a new house or anything like that. So it was all about keeping those living expenses low, and that allowed you to be able to take that $30,000 I probably would have made that I ended up making less and be able to invest it in the transition. Because we still made the money, but you have to put the money somewhere else. So I think you can almost use that same principle as a 9-to-5 to be able to keep those living expenses low. Therefore, you can take less money during the transition. Easier said than done.
Yeah, easier said than done. But
for sure. But no, literally made $30,000 less. And even this year, I've made less money because I've invested so much money into the public speaking, right? I flew out to Milwaukee to do a conference where you only made $200 to do the conference, but you spent $700 on a hotel and a flight. So in theory, I've made the same amount of money on paper this year, but I've made $12,000 less in the first 6 months because I've put so much money back into myself, into the other business, which is the public speaking, the podcast, stuff like that. So it's all about transition.
I think that's it, man. I appreciate you, man.
Cool, bro. To the next one.